I thought cancer rates from radiation are a linear model where birth defects, etc., were a threshold. And that is consistent with a particular theory about radiation. Now, the bit about birth defects having a threshold, that's correct. Birth defects can come from very large doses of radiation, just like alcohol. If you drink enough alcohol, especially in the first trimester, you can get birth defects. Now, there aren't genetic defects that occur from that, just birth defects. Basically, the growing fetus doesn't get the nutrients that it needs in the right way so that it doesn't develop properly, and so you get birth defects. But they are not genetic. You don't pass those on to progeny in the future. They're just birth defects from being unhealthy. And that requires a very, very large dose in the first trimester. Otherwise, nothing happens. When it comes to cancer, then what we have up here is we have multiple different models. So what you see down at the very bottom there, hormesis, being outlined by that arrow. With hormesis, the theory is that, well, life came around, many billions of years ago, and that basic structure of life that we still have today with a cell, where the cell is a phospholipid bilayer, and you've got DNA, and you have, whether it was archaea or prokaryotes, you've got the proteins, you have all of the basic mechanisms for a cell there, and that would have been selected for in a much higher radiation level. So whatever that initial design specification was, that we still have that with us today, that the cells are largely the same, the archaea and the bacteria are largely the same. And so life was designed for a higher radiation field. And that's what this hormesis model says, is that in a higher radiation field, we're at our design specification. Now, that's one theory. Another theory is what you see right there, the sublinear theory. The sublinear theory is basically that once you start to get to zero, the damage goes to zero, but the body can repair itself, and you only get a little bit of damage as you go. Another one right next to that is the linear width threshold. The linear width threshold is that the body can repair itself to some amount. For example, in a range of temperatures, the body's fine. It will accommodate that. A range of pressures, the body will accommodate that. A range of oxygen content, the body will compensate. If the oxygen gets lower, you breathe a little faster, and you really get no other effects. And that linear width threshold model right there is similar. The idea being that the body can accommodate certain ranges of radiation fields that are comparable to the different variations that you get with natural background. And then the solid line there is linear with no threshold, the idea that any amount of radiation will increase your cancer probability. And what you see there is a bunch of hypothetical data just to highlight the kinds of responses that we have. And the point is that statistically, you can't tell the difference between any of them. And more to the point, by the time you're down at levels of that are comparable to background, that are actually much higher than background, you can't see any effect at all. Statistically, the effects of having that elevated radiation or not having it make no difference. And so in that sense, it behaves kind of like the linear with threshold. But even there's no statistically significant difference. The uncertainty in the measurements are too large to see if there's anything happening, if at all. And so literally, if there is an effect, we can't tell the difference between any of these. They're all statistically equivalent. And the more conservative model is the linear width threshold. Now, I did publish a paper recently, which is consistent with the superlinear effect that you see out there, but that's simply due to the added effect of stress when you're being exposed to radiation. The idea being that it's like a placebo, kind of the opposite of a placebo. If you know you've been exposed to low-level radiation, your stress levels go up, your cortisol levels go up, and the biophysical reactions that occur from that actually increase your cancer probability, but it's only from the fear, it's not from the radiation. And so all of these are, for all intents and purposes, indistinguishable when it comes to doses that are bigger than natural background radiation per year. You can get substantially higher than that and still not see an effect because, again, the uncertainties are too large when it comes down to doses that are in the range of, say, 10 rem or less, 10 rem or less, or about 0.1 millisieverts, which is what you see over there to the left. Around 0.1 to 0.2 millisieverts, we can't tell the difference. Whatever is actually happening down there in that range that you see in this graph right here, whatever's there, all of the models that you can use, they are statistically equivalent. And so you can basically pick your model and use whichever one you want. Whichever one scares you the most, you may want to choose, or the one that scares you the least, you may want to choose. But statistically, there is no significant difference between any of them. The uncertainties are just too large. So I hope that answers it. It's a long-standing question. The big issue is that when you're down with doses that are even much smaller than this, the United States in particular has spent many billions of dollars to avoid doses that are a very small fraction of that, on the order of 0.01 millisieverts, or even less than that. The United States will spend billions of dollars to prevent those kinds of doses, because that linear with no threshold scares people. And the idea is that, well, we want to get that as close to zero as possible, and we'll spend billions of dollars to do that, because we're going to assume that that solid line is true, when maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Anyway, I hope that helps. Sorry for the long video. There's a lot of statistics in there, along with epidemiology. And so I thank you for lasting this long. I hope you enjoyed the video and you have a great day.